Hello, and welcome back to our channel for another deep dive into the dramatic world of Los Angeles. Today is a beautiful day, but the shadows gathering over our favorite characters are darker and more terrifying than ever before. Let us immediately unpack the heart-stopping events that are about to unfold and forever change the landscape of the Forrester and Spencer dynasties. The tranquil shores of Malibu have often served as a picturesque backdrop for romance, reconciliation, and quiet moments of reflection for the elite families of Los Angeles. However, the sprawling beach house, a sanctuary that has witnessed the intricate emotional dances of the Spencer and Forrester dynasties, is about to become the epicenter of an unprecedented nightmare. For Will Spencer, this evening was supposed to represent a fragile oasis of peace amidst the raging storms of his life. Having recently navigated the treacherous waters of Ivy Forrester's malicious scheming, the intense corporate espionage accusations hurled by an increasingly unhinged R.J. Forrester, and the complicated emotional web entangling him, Electra Forrester and Melissa Dillon, Will desperately needed a moment of genuine connection. He had orchestrated a beautiful, romantic evening at the beach house, hoping to carve out a safe space where the heavy burdens of the Forrester creation's legacy and the Spencer family expectations could temporarily be forgotten. The ambience was meticulously crafted, with the rhythmic, soothing sound of the crashing waves providing a deceptive lullaby against the impending doom. Melissa Dillon, standing at the center of this romantic tableau, was a woman carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. For weeks, Dillon had been suffocating under the relentless pressure of a moral and psychological vice. On one side, she was being ruthlessly coerced by R.J. Forrester, who was leveraging his immense power as the boss's son to force her into a toxic alliance designed to permanently sever Will and Electra's bond. On the other side, a far more sinister threat had been haunting her every waking moment. The mysterious, disguised voice on the phone, chillingly reminding her of unfinished business, had planted seeds of sheer terror in her mind. Rumors swirling around her potential connection to the tragic and unsolved death of Luna Nozawa only amplified her internal torment. Yet in the warm, golden glow of the beach house lighting, looking into Will's earnest and affectionate eyes, Dillon allowed herself a fleeting, dangerous moment of vulnerability. She allowed herself to believe, just for a second, that she could escape her dark past and find salvation in the arms of a man who genuinely cared for her. As the evening progressed, the atmosphere inside the beach house grew increasingly intimate, completely isolated from the chaotic world outside. Will, ever the attentive and devoted partner in this moment, had prepared a special gift for Dillon, a tangible symbol of his affection and his desire to protect her from the overwhelming forces threatening to tear her down. The crackling of the fireplace cast dancing shadows across the room, illuminating the genuine smiles that had been so rare for both of them lately. They were completely absorbed in each other, their conversation a soft murmur against the backdrop of the ocean. However, this beautiful illusion of safety was nothing more than a fragile glass cage, and the hammer was already swinging toward it. The stark contrast between the warmth inside the beach house and the cold, calculated malice lurking just beyond the expansive glass windows was a masterclass in dramatic irony. They were entirely oblivious to the fact that their romantic sanctuary had been breached, not by corporate rivals or jealous ex-lovers, but by a lethal predator. Outside, cloaked in the impenetrable darkness of the dense woods bordering the Malibu property, a silent assassin lay in wait. The sniper, a phantom born from the darkest corners of Dillon's unresolved past, had meticulously tracked her to this remote location. Through the high-powered scope of a deadly rifle, the crosshairs rested squarely on Melissa Dillon's chest. The assassin's breathing was steady, their focus absolute, devoid of any hesitation or mercy. The chilling night air seemed to hold its breath in anticipation of the violence to come. Every movement inside the brightly lit living room was magnified through the lens, turning Will and Dylan into unwitting actors on a tragic stage. The sniper's finger curled around the trigger, applying the precise amount of pressure needed to end Dylan's life and settle the mysterious score that had been looming over her. The connection to Luna Nizua's grim fate felt palpable in the cold steel of the weapon, a silent promise that the sins of the past were about to collect their bloody toll in the present. Inside the beach house, the sequence of events that followed played out in agonizing, slow-motion horror. Will, holding the beautifully wrapped gift he had prepared for Dylan, took a step toward her, his eyes reflecting a depth of emotion that words could barely capture. Suddenly, a fleeting moment of clumsiness, a slip of the fingers, a momentary distraction, caused the small box to tumble from his grasp, plummeting toward the hardwood floor. In a split-second reaction driven by pure instinct, Will bent down to retrieve the fallen token of his affection. It was a mundane, insignificant movement, the kind of everyday action that goes entirely unnoticed. But in this specific fraction of a second, the universe aligned in a way that would alter the course of their lives forever. Just as Will's torso dipped below the invisible line of trajectory, the sniper in the woods squeezed the trigger. The deafening, sharp crack of the gunshot shattered the serene melody of the ocean waves, tearing through the night with apocalyptic force. The heavy-caliber bullet, originally destined to pierce Melissa Dillon's heart, instead found an unintended target. The massive pane of reinforced glass overlooking the beach exploded inward in a catastrophic shower of crystalline shrapnel. Before Dylan could even register the deafening sound of the gunshot or the explosive shattering of the window, the horrific reality of the situation manifested in front of her eyes. The bullet struck Will Spencer with devastating, kinetic impact, tearing through his flesh and bone just as he reached for the fallen gift. The sheer force of the projectile violently threw his body backward, a sickening thud echoing through the suddenly chaotic room. The romantic ambience was instantly annihilated, replaced by the metallic stench of blood and the blinding panic of a lethal ambush. Will collapsed onto the floor, a dark, expanding crimson stain rapidly blooming across his shirt, his breathing instantly becoming a ragged, desperate struggle for air. For a paralyzing moment, time seemed to completely freeze for Melissa Dillon. Her mind violently rejected the apocalyptic scene unfolding before her. The transition from a tender, romantic embrace to a blood-soaked nightmare was too abrupt, too incomprehensibly cruel for her brain to process. Then, the shock shattered, and a guttural, primal scream tore from her throat, a sound of pure, unadulterated agony that echoed into the unforgiving night. She threw herself onto the floor beside Will, her trembling hands frantically pressing against his chest in a desperate, futile attempt to stem the catastrophic flow of blood. His skin was already growing terrifyingly cold, his eyes fluttering as shock and massive blood loss rapidly dragged him toward the abyss. She pleaded with him to stay with her, her voice cracking under the weight of her terror. Her hands, slick with the blood of the man she cared for, trembled violently as she realized the horrifying truth. His act of bending down had inadvertently saved her life at the terrifying cost of his own. Amidst the chaotic horror of the bleeding and the screaming, a chilling detail caught Dylan's eye, a detail that would cement this night as the ultimate psychological torture. Lying amidst the glittering shards of broken glass on the floor, near the point of the bullet's entry, was a small, pristine black card. It had been attached to a projectile or thrown with terrifying precision in the immediate aftermath of the shot. With blood-soaked fingers, Dylan reached out and turned the card over. The words inscribed on it were stark, elegant, and dripping with lethal promise, stating that next time there will be no scapegoat. The message struck her with the force of a physical blow, a psychological bullet that bypassed her flesh and lodged directly in her soul. The assassin was watching. The assassin knew exactly what had happened. Will wasn't the target. He was merely collateral damage, a tragic scapegoat in a deadly game of vengeance that Dylan had inadvertently dragged him into. The crushing, suffocating weight of guilt instantly crashed down upon her, threatening to drown her entirely. The desperate scramble to save Will Spencer's life transformed the serene Malibu coastline into a scene of frantic emergency. The wail of ambulance sirens soon pierced the night, a harsh, mechanical screaming that signaled the arrival of the paramedics. Dylan watched in a state of dissociative trauma as the emergency medical technicians stormed into the beach house, their movements swift, clinical, and urgent. They descended upon Will, barking medical jargon, applying pressure dressings, and securing him to a stretcher with practiced efficiency. The entire living room, once a sanctuary of love, now looked like a gruesome war zone, forever stained by the violence of Dylan's unseen enemies. As they rushed Will out the door, his life hanging by the most fragile of threads, Dylan followed, a hollow shell of a woman, her clothes soaked in his blood, her mind endlessly replaying the terrifying trajectory of the bullet and the chilling promise written on the black card. The sterile, glaringly bright corridors of the Los Angeles hospital offered no comfort, only an agonizing purgatory of waiting. Will was immediately rushed into the trauma bay, a swarm of surgeons and nurses fighting a desperate, bloody battle to stabilize his rapidly failing vital signs. Outside the swinging doors of the intensive care unit, Dylan sat on a cold, plastic chair, isolated in her profound trauma. But her isolation was brutally shattered by the arrival of the Spencer family. The doors to the waiting area burst open, and the raw, unbridled fury of Bill Spencer and Katie Logan Spencer filled the room. Bill, a man accustomed to absolute control and power, looked like a wounded, dangerous lion. His eyes, usually sharp with corporate calculation, were now wild with a terrifying mixture of absolute devastation and murderous rage. Katie, already walking an emotional tightrope due to her ongoing war with Brooke and Ridge, looked as though her entire world had just collapsed inward. The moment Bill's eyes locked onto Melissa Dillon, sitting there covered in his son's blood, the atmosphere in the waiting room turned suffocatingly toxic. He didn't know the specifics of the sniper or the black card yet, but his paternal instincts and ruthless nature immediately demanded a target for his immense pain. He advanced on Dylan, his voice a low, terrifying growl that vibrated with pure hatred. He demanded to know what she had done, how she had allowed his son to be gunned down in his own home. Katie, weeping uncontrollably, echoed his sentiments, her grief manifesting as a fierce, protective hostility toward the woman who had brought this violence to their doorstep. Dylan, completely shattered by guilt, offered no defense. She absorbed their venom, their accusations, and their hatred because, in her heart, she believed every single word. She was the poison. Her presence, her unresolved past, the mysterious caller, the shadows of Luna Nozawa's death. She had dragged all of this darkness into Will's light, and now he was paying the ultimate price. The emotional onslaught from the Spencers was swiftly followed by the relentless, clinical pressure of a police interrogation. Detectives descended upon the hospital, separating Dylan from the grieving family to pull her into a small, windowless consultation room. The questioning was intense, rapid-fire, and unforgiving. They demanded every detail of the evening, the exact sequence of events, the angle of the shot, and most importantly, who would want her dead. Dylan sat under the harsh fluorescent lights, her mind fractured, clutching the terrifying secret of the black card and the mysterious phone calls tightly to her chest. She was trapped in a paralyzing dilemma. If she revealed the truth about the caller and the thread of unfinished business, she would implicate herself in a dangerous, potentially criminal past, drawing the police into the murky waters of Luna's demise and risking everything. But by remaining silent, she was protecting a killer who had just put the man she loved on life support. Her answers were evasive, her demeanor suspicious, painting a target on her own back in the eyes of the law. While Dylan endured the grueling interrogation and the crushing weight of the Spencer family's hatred, a far more immediate and terrifying threat was unfolding within the very walls of the hospital. The assassin, cold, patient, and utterly determined to rectify the mistake made at the beach house, had not fled into the night. Instead, the killer had seamlessly infiltrated the chaotic environment of the medical center. Dressed in stolen scrubs, a surgical mask obscuring their features, the Phantom stalked the labyrinthine corridors, blending perfectly into the frantic movement of doctors and nurses. The hospital, a place dedicated to healing and saving lives, had unknowingly become a deadly hunting ground. The sniper lurked in the shadows of the ICU, their cold eyes constantly scanning the area, waiting for the police presence to thin, waiting for the Spencer family to drop their guard. They were biding their time, calculating the perfect moment to slip into Will's room and finish the job, ensuring that the scapegoat would not survive to tell the tale, and preparing to finally execute the true target. The ripple effects of this catastrophic event began to spread outward, promising to fundamentally alter the landscape of the Forrester and Spencer dynasties. When the news of the shooting inevitably reaches R.J. Forrester, the psychological fallout will be immense. R.J., who had been ruthlessly pressuring Dylan and aggressively feuding with Will be forced to confront the horrifying reality of the violence that has erupted. Will he feel a pang of guilt for his relentless hostility, realizing that his petty corporate and romantic grievances are nothing compared to life and death? Or will his darker, more manipulative instincts take over, using Will's critical condition as an opportunity to further isolate Dylan and consolidate his own power? Meanwhile, Electra Forrester, who is already torn between her lingering love for Will and her newfound attraction to RJ, will be devastated. The sudden, brutal reminder of Will's mortality might instantly clarify her conflicted heart, sending her rushing to his bedside, further complicating the emotional wreckage that Dylan is currently drowning in. Inside the sterile confines of the intensive care unit, the battle for Will Spencer's life raged on, a silent, desperate war fought with machines, medications, and the sheer will to survive. He lay motionless, a labyrinth of tubes and wires connecting his battered body to the monitors that relentlessly tracked his fragile heartbeat. The rhythmic, mechanical hiss of the ventilator was the only sound in the room, a stark reminder of his profound vulnerability. The bullet had caused catastrophic internal damage, and the surgeons had offered no guarantees, only a grim warning that the next 48 hours would be critical. Will was trapped in a deep, medically induced coma, suspended in a dark void between life and death, entirely unaware of the immense sorrow, the burning hatred, and the lethal danger that surrounded his hospital bed. His fight was internal, a microscopic struggle for cellular survival, while the external world descended into absolute chaos because of his tragic sacrifice. For Melissa Dillon, the walls were rapidly closing in, threatening to crush her completely. She was a woman entirely isolated, standing alone at the center of a massive, violent storm. The police viewed her with intense suspicion, treating her as a hostile witness harboring dark secrets. The powerful Spencer family, led by a vengeful Bill and a heartbroken Katie, had openly declared their hatred for her, blaming her entirely for the tragedy that had befallen their son. And somewhere in the sterile, echoing hallways of the hospital, a faceless assassin was hunting her, holding a black card that promised inevitable death. The psychological torment was absolute. Dylan was forced to confront the horrifying reality that her mere existence was a lethal hazard to anyone who dared to care for her. The love she felt for Will, the tentative hope she had allowed herself to feel during that romantic evening at the beach house, had been weaponized against him. As the long, agonizing night bleeds into a bleak, uncertain morning, Dylan must make a choice that will define her future and Will's survival. The instinct to run, to flee Los Angeles and disappear into the shadows to protect Will from further collateral damage, is overwhelmingly strong. If she leaves, the assassin will follow her, drawing the danger away from the Spencer family. But running means abandoning the man she loves while he fights for his life, leaving him to the mercy of a killer who who has already proven their ruthlessness. Alternatively, she can choose to stay, to face the wrath of Bill Spencer, the relentless scrutiny of the police, and the terrifying presence of the lurking sniper. Staying means she must finally confront the demons of her past, unearth the truth about the mysterious caller, and perhaps finally solve the dark puzzle of Luna Nozowa's death before the killer strikes again. It is a choice between a cowardly sacrifice and a terrifying stand, and the fate of multiple lives hangs entirely on her decision. The tragedy at the beach house marks a terrifying turning point in the ongoing saga of Los Angeles's most powerful families. The intricate webs of corporate espionage, romantic rivalries, and family feuds have been violently eclipsed by a raw, bloody struggle for survival. As Will Spencer clings to life by the thinnest of threads, the entire canvas of characters is thrown into disarray. The revelation of the black card and its chilling message guarantees that the violence is far from over. Melissa Dillon is no longer just a woman caught in a love quadrangle. She is the epicenter of a deadly mystery that threatens to consume everyone around her. The days ahead will be filled with unbearable tension, heartbreaking grief, and a desperate race against time to unmask a killer who operates in plain sight. As the shadows lengthen in the hospital corridors, the only certainty is that the next bullet will not miss.